There are those who impose and those who inspire, those who command obedience and those who awaken the desire to follow. In a world full of leaders who shout, demand, and control, what we truly need is someone who leads with presence, not through fear, but through trust, not with force, but with coherence. Confucius put it clearly. The true ruler leads with virtue. He is like the wind. The people are like grass. When the wind blows, the grass bends. He wasn't just speaking of politics. He was speaking of life itself. We are all leaders in some way, in the family, at work, among friends, even in the private decisions we make. The question is, how are we leading? This video invites you to see leadership not as power over others, but as influence through example. To discover that lasting change doesn't come from commanding, it comes from being. The more integrity you live with, the stronger your voice becomes, even in silence. Because the true leader doesn't need to impose. It's enough to walk first. For Confucius, leadership was not about status. It was about virtue. It wasn't about having power, but about deserving it. He taught that the ideal ruler wasn't the one who enforced strict laws, but the one who lived so virtuously that his mere behavior taught others. He said, "If you are upright yourself, others will follow even without orders. If you are not upright, even with orders, they will not obey." In his philosophy, the leader was first and foremost a model, someone who embodied the values they wished to see in the world. And that coherence was the foundation of their moral authority. There was no need to shout, punish, or manipulate. It was enough to be. This vision goes far beyond politics. It applies to the teacher who educates through attitude, the parent who corrects with love, the friend who advises from experience. Leadership, according to Confucius, is not exercised from power, but from character. It's not a privilege, it's a responsibility. And that responsibility begins in the most private places, in how you think, how you decide, and how you treat those who can give you nothing in return. Because true leadership is not revealed on stage, but in the details. Commanding can generate obedience, but not respect. It may produce fast results, but not deep transformation. When someone leads from authority without virtue, they may get external compliance, but internal resentment. It's the obedience of fear, not of commitment. Confucius observed that a leader who relies only on position loses influence the moment that position is gone. But one who inspires through example, calmness, and integrity leaves a lasting impact, even after they're no longer present. In everyday life, this is clear. An authoritarian boss may get the job done, but they don't inspire loyalty, creativity, or trust. In contrast, a leader who treats the team with respect, listens, and acts justly creates an environment where people want to give their best. The same applies in the family. Giving orders may result in short-term obedience, but inspiring shapes conscience, character, and lasting bonds. Real change doesn't come from control, it comes from connection, and connection requires integrity. Confucius sensed this centuries ago. When power is exercised without virtue, it decays into abuse. But when virtue guides power, it becomes service. And service, over time, transforms everyone it touches. Confucius didn't leave a checklist for leadership, but throughout his teachings, one central idea appears again and again. Authentic leadership begins with inner work. And there are three virtues that, when cultivated, can turn an ordinary person into a true role model: inner coherence, quiet service, and relational wisdom. Inner coherence is the root of trust. It means living according to what you say, not being perfect, but being consistent. People can forgive mistakes, but not hypocrisy. A coherent leader doesn't need to constantly explain decisions. Their way of living already justifies them. Quiet service is the mindset of someone who leads not to shine, but to help others grow. They don't seek the spotlight, but a purpose. They listen more than they speak, observe more than they interrupt. They're present, but they don't impose. As Confucius said, the wise man does not display himself, and therefore he shines. Relational wisdom is the ability to read moments, emotions, and contexts, to know when to lead and when to step back, when to demand and when to understand. It's that human intelligence that turns leadership into art, not structure. Those who cultivate these virtues inspire effortlessly, because to lead is not to command from above, but to walk ahead with integrity. Many people believe leadership is a privilege reserved for those with visible power, a position, authority, a platform. But Confucius taught the opposite. For him, leadership isn't about the role you hold, but about how you inhabit that role. It's not about being a boss. It's about being a guide, not about having followers, but being worthy of being followed. In the family, you lead when you choose to be an example instead of a judge. When you teach through daily behavior, how you speak under pressure, how you treat those who can't defend themselves, how you handle your own mistakes. A father who apologizes, a mother who shows patience instead of yelling. They are educating more powerfully than 1,000 lectures. Leadership at home is not imposed. It is transmitted through presence, listening, and consistent care. At work, you don't need a title to inspire. If you arrive on time, keep your word, and work with excellence even when no one is watching, you're already making a difference. Leading at work means helping without competing, building without envy, correcting without humiliating. When someone acts this way, others begin to ask, how can I be more like them? In everyday life, you lead when you act with integrity, even in small, unseen moments. By not taking advantage when you could, by showing respect to a stranger, by calming a tense situation instead of fueling it. When you choose to be a bridge rather than a wall, you are already leading. Confucius reminded us that no position is small when virtue is great. Anyone can be a leader if their life becomes a living example. And wherever there's a soul who guides themselves with clarity, there's already a beacon others can follow. True leadership doesn't always leave behind applause or statues, but it leaves something far deeper, footprints on people, marks that aren't visible but remain, marks that transform without making noise. That is the legacy of ethical leadership, a kind of influence that doesn't need fame because its power lies in what it awakens in others. Confucius didn't speak of charismatic leaders, but of people who, through their way of living, inspired respect. People who didn't seek to stand out, but stood out anyway. Because when someone lives with virtue consistently, they leave a lesson that lasts long after they're gone. Ethical legacy isn't measured in material achievements, but in people who changed because of your example. The student who chose honesty because they had an honest teacher. The child who learned to listen because they were listened to. The colleague who stopped competing because they felt trusted. No one remembers exactly what a leader said in every meeting, but everyone remembers how they made them feel. Ethical leadership isn't immediate, but it is lasting. It isn't flashy, but it is essential. And the more invisible it seems, the deeper its echo. There are many ways to lead, but only one leaves a true legacy, the one rooted in virtue. In a world where so many seek to dominate, the true leader does not control. They transform. They don't shout. They guide. They don't command. They inspire. Confucius didn't speak of power. He spoke of integrity, because he understood that leadership isn't about moving crowds. It's about moving hearts. And only those who have worked on their own heart can do that. Leadership doesn't begin at the top. It begins in the intimate. How you live, how you decide, how you treat those who have nothing to offer you. Today, more than ever, we need leaders like that. People who don't strive to be obeyed, but to be an example. Who don't hide behind titles, but shine through the way they live. Who don't spread fear, but inspire respect. And respect cannot be demanded. It is earned through every consistent act, every fair word, every wise silence. You may not lead a company or a country, but you lead your life. You lead your relationships. And you can lead, by example, those who silently look up to you. Because the true leader does not rule from above, they walk ahead. And from there, they inspire. If this message resonated with you, if you believe this kind of leadership is both possible and necessary, stay with us. Subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and tell us in the comments which part spoke to your heart. This space is for those who believe that leadership is not about commanding, but about serving with virtue.